Welcome to English Insight Podcast. Learn English through story and real growth. In today's video, you're not just going to improve your English. You're going to step into the mind of one of the most influential thinkers of modern history and hear a lesson he understood late, when success, money, and fame were no longer the real challenge. This session is designed to help you grow your listening and vocabulary, yes, but more importantly, to reshape how you think about ambition, time, and what truly matters. Whether you're a beginner or somewhere in between, put on your headphones, maybe open a notebook, and stay with me, because this story hits deeper than most people expect. By the end of this session, you will have learned more than 10 natural English expressions, understood a powerful real-life story, and felt more confident not only in English, but in how you reflect on your own life choices. Ready? Let's start. Steve Jobs was not a man known for regret. He was bold, demanding, visionary, and famously intense. He chased perfection when others chased comfort. He pushed people when others protected feelings. And for decades, this mindset built products that changed the world. But late in his life, something shifted. Not publicly at first. Not in product launches or keynote speeches, but in quiet conversations, reflections, and final interviews. And that's where the lesson lives. Most people think Steve Jobs' biggest regret was related to business. A product that failed, a decision that cost Apple time, or people he fired too harshly. But those who listened carefully realized something deeper. His regret was not about what he built. It was about what he postponed. For most of his life, Jobs lived as if time were unlimited. He chased the future relentlessly. Next product, next breakthrough, next revolution. And in doing so, he treated the present as something to sacrifice. His regret was not about what he built. It was about what he postponed. For most of his life, Jobs lived as if time were unlimited. He chased the future relentlessly. Next product, next breakthrough, next revolution. And in doing so, he treated the present as something to sacrifice. This is where the lesson begins. Jobs once said that remembering he was going to die was the most important tool he ever used to make decisions. But what many people don't talk about is that this realization came late. Before illness forced him to slow down, his life moved at a speed few could survive. And here's the uncomfortable truth. You can be wildly successful and still misunderstand life. In his final years, Jobs spoke more about simplicity, presence, and relationships than innovation. He talked less about building the future and more about appreciating moments that don't repeat. And that contrast matters. Because most people listening to this video are not billionaires. But they are doing something similar on a smaller scale. They postpone joy. They delay confidence. They tell themselves, later, when I'm better, later, when I'm successful, later, when I have more time. Steve Jobs had everything most people dream of, and still realized something was missing. That realization didn't come from failure. It came from clarity. There's a famous moment near the end of his life when Jobs reflected on success. He admitted that being the richest man in the cemetery meant nothing to him. What mattered was going to bed at night knowing he had done something meaningful, not just impressive. This is the lesson most people miss. Achievement without presence feels empty. Progress without awareness feels rushed. Ambition without reflection feels endless. And here's where this story connects directly to you. Many English learners live exactly this pattern. They say, "I'll speak confidently later. I'll enjoy English later. I'll feel proud later." He built devices that help people connect, while often being disconnected himself. And that paradox is powerful, because it shows us something honest. Intelligence doesn't protect you from imbalance. Success doesn't guarantee wisdom. Speed doesn't equal meaning. In his final reflections, Jobs emphasized intuition, listening to the inner voice, and not living someone else's life. These sound simple, but they are hard lessons learned through decades of intensity. And that's why they matter. Right now, as you listen, ask yourself something quietly. What are you postponing because you think, "Now is not the time"? Confidence? Enjoyment? Presence? Your voice? Steve Jobs didn't regret dreaming big. He regretted not pausing sooner to fully live inside those dreams. And this is where the story becomes personal. Because you don't need to wait for illness, loss, or exhaustion to learn this lesson. You can learn it now. In the next part of this video, we're going to go deeper into how this lesson changed Jobs' thinking near the end, how it applies to learning, confidence, and self-trust, and how ordinary people can avoid learning it too late. Stay with me, because this isn't just a story about Steve Jobs. It's a quiet warning and an opportunity. And here is where Steve Jobs' story stops being inspirational and starts being instructive. Because once he truly understood what he had postponed, he began to see his entire life through a different lens. Not with regret that paralyzes, but with honesty that wakes you up. Near the end of his life, Jobs spoke less about legacy and more about clarity. He realized that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from removing what doesn't matter. And that realization didn't arrive during his rise. It arrived when there was no more time to rush. He understood that attention is life's real currency. Where you place your attention every day becomes your reality. For decades, his attention lived almost entirely in the future, the next product, the next idea, the next disruption. And while that mindset changed the world, it also cost him moments that could never be replayed. This is the lesson he learned late. You don't find meaning at the finish line. You build it in the moments you rush past. That sentence alone explains so much. Think about how often we tell ourselves, "After this phase, I'll relax," or, "Once I reach that level, I'll enjoy it." Jobs reached every level, and still had to face the same truth we all do. later is an illusion. This matters deeply for anyone learning English, building confidence, or trying to grow. Because many learners don't quit English due to lack of intelligence. They quit because they treat learning as pressure, not presence. Jobs eventually understood that the most powerful experiences in life are not optimized, they are felt. That's why, in his final years, he spoke more about walking, conversations, silence, and simplicity. He no longer chased noise. He chose depth. And here's the uncomfortable question this leaves us with. Is someone who achieved everything still wished he had slowed down earlier? What does that say about how we're living right now? The lesson isn't, don't work hard. The lesson is, don't delay being human. Jobs realized that intuition, that quiet inner voice, had been right all along. But he listened to it fully only after his body forced him to. Most people never stop long enough to hear that voice. They fill silence with goals. They fill uncertainty with plans. They fill fear with productivity. And one day, they look back and realize they were always preparing for life instead of living it. Steve Jobs' late regret teaches us something rare: urgency without panic. He didn't suddenly reject ambition. He refined it. He understood that real success is alignment, when your work, values, and presence move in the same direction. And this applies directly to English learning. When you stop trying to finish English and start using it to think, everything changes. When you stop waiting to be perfect and start being present, confidence grows naturally. When you stop treating mistakes as failures and start seeing them as proof of engagement, fluency accelerates. Jobs didn't regret being imperfect. He regretted postponing presence. So here's the shift this story invites you to make, quietly, personally, without pressure. Don't ask, how fast can I reach the next level? Ask instead, how fully am I experiencing this level right now? Because life doesn't reward speed alone. It rewards awareness. Steve Jobs once said that connecting the dots only makes sense looking backward. But living those dots, truly living them, requires courage in the present. The courage to slow down. The courage to listen. The courage to stop postponing yourself. And maybe that's the lesson he wished he had trusted earlier. Not to do less, but to be more present while doing it. If this story made you pause, even for a second, then it has already done its job. And if you want more stories like this, stories that improve your English while sharpening how you see life, then stay connected with English Insight Podcast. Listen deeply. Think slowly. And don't wait until later to begin, because later is never guaranteed, but now is always available.